As an acupuncturist right now, what I want to do is demonstrate a little bit for you what goes on when a needle goes into a point. So I'm going to hold up my hand here. This is where large intestine 4 is located. And I'm going to take out one of my acupuncture needles. Now, as you can see, hopefully, I'll hold that up. That needle is barely thicker than a hair's width. It's extremely fine, extremely thin. And it's not like those hypodermic needles that you get when you give blood or have blood taken. This is a filiform needle. It's solid and it's extremely thin. So what happens is it goes into a guide tube which assists the insertion of the needle. And I'm going to bring it to this point and just gently tap the needle in, like that. So the needle's in now, and this is what an acupuncturist will do. They put the needle into the point, and then they might insert it a little bit more deeply. And then once they feel like the needle's at a sufficient depth, they'll do what's called a stimulation of the point, where they will twist the needle back and forth quite quickly, like I'm doing right now. So I'm just twisting the needle back and forth at the point. It seems like it's not doing very much, but all of a sudden, when I wait a few more seconds, there it is. Suddenly, in twisting the needle, there came into my point a sensation of a dull, achy sensation. It was a dull, broad, achy sensation right around this area. Now, as an acupuncturist, when I was in school, we were taught to stimulate the needle to bring about that sensation. And in the ancient Chinese texts, they refer to that sensation as a fish grabbing a hook. And it said that the qi comes to the point and grabs the needle. Now, this researcher, Helen Langemann, what she has found using ultrasound technology, she's found that when the needle is twisted back and forth, as I just did, what happens is the collagen fibers of the loose connective tissue start to wind in one direction around the needle. Literally, it's like spaghetti being wound around a fork when the fork is twisted. And it's a little bit strange. I can't fully explain how this occurs. But even though I'm twisting the needle going back and forth, the fibers still wind around the needle in one direction. And what she found was that the fibers stayed wound around the needle for as long as the needle was left in place. And what that created in the tissue was a micro stretch. Now here's where the really interesting thing comes in. When the needle is left in place for 30 minutes, the cells of the connective tissue, known as fibroblasts, these fibroblasts go through what's called a morphological shape change. They go from a more globular formation to a flat, spread out formation. That change of shape is associated with a couple of things. One, when the fibroblasts change shape like that and spread out and become smooth and flat, that change shape is associated with a large-scale relaxation of the connective tissue. So far beyond the local effects of the needle, there's a much broader global effect of relaxing of the connective tissue. So what's the connection here? We're obviously not going to be needling ourselves in Yin Yoga. But the curious thing that Helen Langemann found was she was able to replicate the same effects of a needle tugging on the collagen by just manually stretching a piece of connective tissue. When she manually stretched a piece of connective tissue for 30 minutes, she found that the fibroblasts in that tissue changed shape in exactly the same way as they did with the needle stretch. In terms of the targeted areas of our body that we're influencing, when we do several poses that perhaps target the same area for 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and 5 minutes, the cumulative effect starts to get into the time territory of 30 minutes. And this may be a way that the Yin Yoga practice really does produce a kind of acupuncture effect or a needleless acupuncture session while we're practicing. So I hope that's of interest, and I look forward to now practicing this Yin Yoga sequence with you in Yoga Journal's new course, Yin Yoga 101.